Hey everyone, welcome to Craving Something Scary, where it's all horror all the time. Now in this video, I'm going to discuss how we are seeing that Scream 6 is mirroring several things that occurred in Scream 2, such as the use of the theater in this movie and how it's also taking place on a college campus like we saw in the original sequel. However, could there be even more plot lines in Scream 6 that point us back to the past? I believe there is a huge possibility that we could even see a Debbie Salt 2.0 type character in the finale of this movie. And I have 3 prime suspects. Let's go. So just to make sure we're on the same page, I want to make sure you understand what I mean by having a Debbie Salt 2.0 type of character. So remember back to Scream 2, right? The very end of the film, we find out that Debbie Salt, who was a character that was sprinkled in throughout the movie as one of the reporters, their local reporters, always hanging around Gail. So we find out at the very end, at the reveal, that Debbie Salt is actually Mrs. Loomis, the mother of Billy Loomis. And that's the big, finale of the movie. She's the mastermind of the whole thing. So what I think we're going to see here, I do believe we're going to get a Debbie Salt 2.0, meaning we're going to see a parent or grandparent or possibly even a sibling. But it's going to be one of those 3 that will be behind the murders of Scream 6. There's enough evidence that Scream 2 is being followed fairly closely in terms of being at college, like I mentioned earlier, and in a theater, a lot of time in the theater. So I'm going to go ahead and say I believe that's going to happen. And what really got me on this track was seeing how they had hired 3 older male actors. So I think the change up is going to be, it's not going to be a female this time, like a Mrs. Loomis. They're going to make it a man instead of a woman in Scream 6 or their version of Scream 2. And it will be a male figure who is going to be the father of a previous victim or killer. Could be either one. Like she was the mother of Billy. This could be the father of a Jill, for example, or what have you, easily. Or it could be a victim as well. But it's going to be a father, grandfather, or a brother of a previous victim or killer that's going to be the one who's responsible. That's my working theory right now. And so basically, I've got it narrowed down to 3 suspects. And now let's dive in and look at our suspects, starting with suspect number 1. So our first suspect is Josh SEGARRA. Now in real life, he's age 36, and we do not yet know his character name. But for a projected role in the film, I'm guessing this could easily be a college professor at Blackmore University, and he could even potentially be Sam's love interest, as he is significantly older, and Sam also would be in her late 20s at this point in the movie, although in real life, I think she's like 31. So I could just, in my own projections, I could see him being a professor there at school, at the university, and possibly in love with Sam, her boyfriend. Now, the thing about Josh that's interesting is that he has a reputation of being a good villain. He was in Arrow, played a villain character there, did it quite well. He also really has that look, if you will, that you could see being a villain. He's arguably, but after Samara Weaving, and all of the core group and those guys, talking about new additions to the cast, other than Samara, he's arguably the biggest name actor. I know Dermot is out there and Henry CZERNY's out there as well. But he probably has the most name recognition, which typically with someone that has the higher name recognition, they're usually going to be a killer. Like we saw Jack Quaid coming in last to 5. And of course, we know he was Richie one of the killers. So it's definitely logical to think that Josh could be one of our Ghostface killers in Scream 6. I know a lot of you have expressed to me that is your pick for being one of the killers in the movie already as well. And I don't know for sure that I'm ready to go there, but I do think it's a good chance of it. It will not be shocking to me to see any of the three people that we're talking about in this video, any of these guys to be named one of the killers, because I believe it was one of them for sure. At least one of these is going to be the killer or the mastermind of this film. So we'll get to everybody in a minute. But as for Josh, I would say the potential of being a killer is high. The only thing about him potentially being Sam's boyfriend is that would be a repetition from 5. So I don't think that he's necessarily going to be the love interest of Sam. I know that that seems to be a popular theory among a lot of folks, and I could see it also, but I think if he is going to be Sam's love interest, that he probably will not be a killer. Although I'll say this, in Scream 2, the original version that Kevin Williamson wrote, it was going to be Derek, Sydney's boyfriend. So Sydney's boyfriend in Scream 2 was going to be one of the killers, just like Scream 1 as well. So if they're really mirroring the original intent for Scream 2 to some degree, then they could be having Josh SEGARRA be Sam's boyfriend, because a lot of folks will be like, there's no way he's going to be the killer. They wouldn't do that a second movie in a row. Well, it almost happened in the original Scream, and they could do it again now and say, you know what, we're going to do it, because most people are going to think there's no way. So Josh is a killer. So if you think about it, it is possible. It's 50-50 in my book right now, but we'll find out obviously a lot more. I think once we start getting, like the trailer, obviously at the end of the year, we're going to have a little more insight into it. But Josh SEGARRA, solid choice for an early Ghostface pick and possibly Sam's boyfriend. And he didn't have to be necessarily teaching college either, but I could see him being at the campus there as a professor. All right, guys, let's now look at our second suspect. Okay, for our second suspect, we have Henry CZERNY, and in real life, he is 63 years old. For a character name we do not yet know, and for projected role, I see him as the theater/drama professor at Blackmore University, or possibly the dean of the college. One of those two are my particular opinions on this. Now, seeing him as a theater teacher makes sense, because if indeed this movie is going to take place in the theater so much, they've been filming there for such a long time now, that it would not surprise me if we see like Tara or Mindy in drama class in theater at college, like Sydney was in Scream 2, and therefore there's going to be scenes of her, whoever it is, at the college in the theater, practicing the play, going through it, and having that interaction with a theater teacher. Now, I know in Scream 2, Sydney really only interacted with the theater teacher once, but I could see him having a larger role here in this movie. Maybe he's more prominent in this version. And in Scream 6, we see Henry a lot giving coaching, teaching, maybe even having one-on-one sessions with Tara or with Mindy, whoever the drama student is in the group. But I think it's one of those two, honestly. I don't see it being Chad. I don't think Sam's even in school. So I really see it being Tara or Mindy that will be in the theater class in this movie. So I think I could see him in one of those two roles. Perfect as the professor of theater, or perfect as the dean of the college. Maybe he is more in the background, but yet he's got some type of a bone to pick with someone in the core 4, and therefore is possibly the mastermind from his office. Don't see him in a Ghostface costume. I do think, though, that Henry, in my book, does have a high probability of being a mastermind in this movie. I could see him organizing things, being the mastermind, and then one or two, I'll say two, at least two, maybe three, but at least two people, their students, are actually the ones doing the killing. Some of these new cast members are the actual ghost face in costume killers, but yet Henry's pulling the strings. And he could be doing that as the theater teacher or the dean of the university. They both work. So again, it's only August, early predictions. I'm calling it now. He's a theater teacher or a dean at Blackmore University, and that Henry has a very high chance of being a mastermind behind the killings. All right, guys, let's go to our third and final suspect. So our third suspect is Dermot Mulroney, who in real life is aged 58. We do not have yet a character name for him, but we do have a confirmed role, one of the only roles that's actually confirmed in this film. He is a New York Police Department officer or slash detective. I think he's a detective, especially at that age. I just see him being a homicide detective, very much like a Mark Kincaid type of character is what I'm expecting from Dermot in this movie. Now, while Dermot at the surface can look like being a prime suspect, which it is fun to think about a ghost-faced killer having access to all the police records, all the police databases, all of those things, it makes him very intriguing. But I also think that also makes him very intriguing to be a red herring. And I think of all the characters that are red herring quality, I think Dermot is probably the one that's going to be the higher of the three as a red herring. And we know already from his interviews that he has a daughter that was a victim, and he doesn't say how or in what way she's a victim. But knowing that he went back and had to watch Scream 4 as part of his preparation, I do think he is the father of a character, of a female character in Scream 4. So that limits us really, realistically, I'm not counting Ginny and Marnie in the opening. So if you exclude them, you've got Olivia, you've got Jill, Kirby, and you've got also Rebecca, the publicist, for Sydney. So those are all options to be the father of one of them. And we'll find out who. I mean, again, I could be wrong. It could be someone new. I just don't think so. I don't think you have to go back and watch Scream 4 if the only thing you're preparing for is Kirby Reed, because you'll just deal with the lines and the situations that Kirby's there for. But the fact that he's going back to watch the fourth movie to prepare, then I think he wants to know more about the daughter who was a victim that he's supposed to be the father of. So I think personally that's what it is. He's one of those, a father rather of one of those, and I think they will make him look like a red herring. They're gonna make him look suspicious from the very beginning, like Mark Kincaid. They did a great job in Scream 3, making Mark look very, suspect. He was very much on my radar when I watched that movie the first time as the person I thought was behind it, was the killer. And even to the very last minute when they revealed him there in the house, I still thought it was him. So I think that's what we're going to get here. We're going to get Dermot in this type of role. He'll be a detective investigating the case, and there'll be little things along the way that just makes him look suspicious. But don't believe it, folks. It'll be a red herring. He's going to be the hero at the end of the day, probably like Kincaid was, and may help in saving the day in the third act. That's my prediction for Dermot Mulroney. Well, guys, listen, that's kind of my initial take on these three actors / characters. I do believe one of these three is going to be one of the Ghostface killers or mastermind of the Ghostface killings in this film. That's what I've got right now. Unless I see something, which I could, but at this point, unless I see something that's drastically shaking that opinion, it changes my mind. Unless that happens, I'm sticking with this for the time being. So I want to know what you guys think about these three suspects and my theory of a Debbie Salt 2.0. Do you agree that one of these three is a killer and possible mastermind? And if so, do you also agree that it's a Debbie Salt type of scenario where this will be a father, a grandfather, or a brother of one of the previous victims? I would love to hear if you guys agree with that or not. Let me know what your thoughts are and your ideas and theories in the comments section below. So leave your comments below right now. Well, guys, that's it for this update, but I'll be back with more Scream and other horror movie content. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Craving Something Scary, where it's all horror all the time. Thanks for watching.